Are you wondering how you can improve your interview preparation skills so that by the time you get in your interview, you can actually crush it out of the ballpark and get the job of your dreams? Well, stick around because I'm going to give you my step-by-step process on how I've prepped for every single interview that I've done so far, and especially for the one that landed me my dream role at Meta. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Mindset, Motivation, and Guidance. I'm your host, Brett Parker. I've had a handful of questions recently following my very first video of, okay, awesome, Brett, you've showed us a little bit about your journey, everything like that, but how specifically did you interview for those roles? What kind of preparation did you do? How did you sit down and be able to kind of like craft and put together all of your experiences, everything like that? Because it feels like you're going from roles that are not very similar to what you're applying for, and somehow you're getting in those interviews and you're able to crush it out of the park and you've been able to accept those jobs on the back end. So that's exactly what this video is all about. So without further ado, let's dive into step number one. Step number one, and something that is most important and extremely crucial, is to be able to sit down and thoroughly review that job description. It doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but I promise you this is the game-changing part that is going to give you that leg up, because you're going to be able to understand the ins and outs and know exactly what does this role entail? What is the hiring manager looking for? As a result, what are those specific interviewers really looking for whenever they're in the middle of the interview with you, right? So we're gonna go through, we're gonna read through. What is the basic overview of the job? Let's read through that description, right? And so we're gonna read through that. It's gonna say, you know, you're gonna be responsible for XYZ. This is the company background. This is our mission. This is what we're trying to accomplish. And then this is how this specific role specifically ties back into that mission, right? That's extremely important from an organizational standpoint, right? You need to be able to understand what is this company? What are their overall goals? Do I align with exactly what they're trying to accomplish, what they're doing, right? You really have to be able to sit down and feel out, is this gonna be a fit, not only for the company who's going to be hiring me, but also me on my end, right? Do I just want a job? That's totally fine. If that's something that you want, that's cool. You still need to be able to understand the mission and the role of the company, what they're trying to work towards. If you're somebody who's really diehard, you're like, okay, this is something that's going to change the world and I want to be a part of this, that's awesome too, because either way, wherever you're at, you need to be able to understand what exactly it is that this company is looking to produce, so that then you can be able to appeal and be able to propel and be able to show yourself, okay, I'm somebody that can be able to help in this mission. Okay, so now we're gonna get down into the meat and bones really of that job description, right? Where it's gonna talk about the specific roles and responsibilities that this role is gonna entail, right? The majority of the time, these are gonna be broken down into bullet points, right? It's gonna be able to share exactly what's going to be expected of the individual in this role. There's going to be multiple bullet points, and that's going to give you an exact overview of what this job exactly is expected to produce. Underneath that, you're going to see the preferred qualifications, minimum qualifications. I will say that most companies, especially in the tech world, especially at Meta, if you do not meet those minimum qualifications, your resume will not even move through. And so that's probably not even equivalent for this video, right? Because we're talking about you're already in the middle of the interviewing and everything like that. So you've already crossed that initial stage. You've already passed that, everything like that. But just want to be extremely mindful and be able to share that with the community whenever you are online looking for these roles, even previous to applying and everything like that. Okay, awesome. So now that we've gone through step number one, we're going to dive into step number two. So we've just gone through reading thoroughly that job description. So now what I want you to do is specifically take a highlighter, and I want you to highlight any common themes, any words that you see, phrases, references that you see throughout that entire job description, including the company mission that you're seeing repeated. This is extremely important because this is going to give you a really inside understanding into what specifically, again, is that hiring manager looking for in the interview. And oftentimes that's going to give you insight into what the interviewers are not only going to be looking for, but also some of the questions, some of the examples that they're going to look for you to highlight. And so as you're going through and you're highlighting these, I want you to be mindful of, okay, what are some experiences that I have that kind of I can see be able to fit into these specific bullet points and these phrases and these keywords that I continuously see repeated over and over throughout the job description. So I want to give you a specific example, and I'm pulling exactly off of the job description of the role that I applied for, and I'm going to share exactly what one of the bullet points was, and we're going to kind of break down together what are some experiences, what are some things that I can be able to put down that fit similar to what this is looking for, right? Okay, so the bullet point is develop strong, productive working relationships with internal cross-functional areas. So before you even move forward, let's understand what cross-functional areas are. We're just talking about different teams, different roles that we're interacting with on a daily, right? But they're not in our exact role that we're in. But we're still reliable. And in order for us to be able to get our work done, we need to develop and have those strong relationships, and vice versa. They need to be able to rely and work together with us for them to be able to accomplish what they're trying to entail as well. Okay, so now we're gonna dive right back in. So while you might not be in this exact role right now, let's think about, all right, well, there has to be some kind of interactions that I'm doing in my current role or in a previous role where I had to work with other teams, other people in order to be able to ultimately get something done, right? So I'm gonna share a personal example on my end that fits directly into this. Whenever I first joined Meta, I was in a recruiting coordinator role. So what our exact role and responsibility was it was our responsibility to not only schedule the candidate through the interview, but also be able to move them through the interview process as quickly and efficiently as possible. For those of you that know, whenever you go through interviews at very large companies, you're gonna go through multiple rounds of interviews. And so at every step of the way, there's something that needs to be scheduled that's both gonna coordinate to be able to work with your schedule, interviewer schedules, hiring manager schedules, and oftentimes there's multiple rounds of interviews, right? So you can see there's multiple moving pieces that are going on. So in order for me in that role to really be able to thrive, I needed to be able to build really good relationships with hiring managers to be able to say, hey, you know what? We don't have enough interviewers for this specific role. Is there anybody else that you can be able to provide me with that has the bandwidth, has the ability, and also is trained up to be able to perform this interview and give the feedback that you're looking for, right? So that's one example. The next example is with the interviewers themselves, right? So they're very busy. They're doing this on the side. This is not a part of their core role, their core responsibilities. And so oftentimes, whenever you're reaching out to them, you need to be able to make it as convenient for them as possible. And sometimes you just find those interviewers that are awesome, that will bend around their schedule and make it happen and work with the candidate to be able to accommodate their interview preference and time. And then obviously you're dealing with the candidate itself. They have the majority of the time, they have a full-time job. They have a lot going on in their personal lives, right? And so they have very limited time to be able to also squeeze in and do these interviews themselves, right? So you can see how along the way, as we're building an example that's gonna fit into this current job description, right? I've already had to do these things. It just might not be exactly in this role, but I've already been able to show, okay, this is a muscle that I have, and I'm gonna use this to my advantage whenever I'm now prepping for this interview. Okay, so diving back in, just how I share that example of that specific bullet point, we're gonna go through the entire job description and do that for as many of the bullet points as we possibly can. What this is gonna do is it's not only gonna give you a great understanding of what the role entails and you be able to say, okay, is this something that I see myself really enjoying? But it's also gonna help you realize all that you're currently doing in your role or in a previous role and how you have those equivalent skills that are gonna be able to translate over not only into this role, right? Or maybe there's another one that you come across the way and you're like, okay, I've already done this breakdown, I've done this before. Okay, now I kind of have some examples and some thoughts in my mind that I've done in the past, my experiences that are relevant for this specific job, right? All right, so now we're gonna move into step number 3. So we've just talked about, we've gone through, we've analyzed the job description, and then in the second one, we went through and we broke out some specific examples that tie and correlate back into those bullet points of what are the roles and responsibilities and those minimum qualifications, right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take those experiences and we're gonna put them into the STAR method. If you don't know what the STAR method is, I want you to go and Google it. But brief overview, STAR method is short for situation, task, action, and results. The STAR method is something that we rely heavily on at Meta, and I do know that a lot of tech companies, as well as other large companies as a whole, rely heavily on this. It's a way for people to really get just good feedback, good signaling, make it as unbiased as possible. And so the better you can get at being able to use this technique, I promise you, the better your interviewing skills already are gonna shoot up through the roof. So through the STAR method, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get really, really good at being able to paint a picture and tell a story to the interviewer of how our current role, our responsibilities, our experiences are directly correlated to this exact role, right? And so again, we don't need to be able to show that we're doing the same exact thing. We just need to be able to show that we flex this muscle. If we can do it over here, then we can step into this space and we can be able to learn and do it over here. The better we are at being able to paint that picture and be able to connect those dots for the interviewer, the better it is gonna be for them to be able to sit down, write feedback that is direct and to the point so that the hiring manager has a very good signal at how you as a candidate line up against other candidates. We wanna be able to eliminate as many questions, as many gaps or anything like that as possible. Okay, so we're gonna go back to that bullet point example that we've been using throughout our entire conversation. I'll read that off for us one more time. Develop strong, productive working relationships with internal cross-functional areas. I want to be able to take this and break this down for an interviewer using the STAR method with a wonderful example that is able to show that I'm able to build those relationships, and then as a result, we're able to get our results that we're intending for, right? So let's break this down. What's our situation? Our situation is I'm a brand new recruiting coordinator that is stepping into a team of 5 sourcers and 5 recruiters. Our task at hand is that we need to hire 20 individuals within a certain role by the end of a half. In order for us to be able to make this happen, there's gonna be a lot of communication back and forth, relying both on myself and on the sourcers and the recruiters to be able to ultimately be able to move these candidates through the pipeline, right? Because oftentimes candidates are reaching out to the recruiter, to the sourcer saying, hey, I kind of had a conflict that arose. Hey, I need a little bit more time to prep. And so then in correlation, that's coming back to me. I need to go to the interviewers. I need to be able to, bump that around. Oftentimes I might need to change out that interview, or I might need to connect with the hiring manager if it's a candidate that they really want to wait and kind of see feedback on to be able to see if they can bump back their hiring decision, all those things, right? And so those are the actions that then I am going to highlight as within that specific example. And then at the very end of it, what is the result? At the result, hopefully that end result is that at the end of the half, we were able to hire for all of those roles. We put X amount of candidates through the process and everything like that. And so again, we're really doing just a wonderful job of step by step being able to break down and show what's the situation, what's the task, what specific actions did I take, and then what were the direct results, so that that interviewer, again, there's no question in their mind that, wow, this person must be really good at being able to build those connections, because again, that's a lot of different moving pieces. And at the end of the day, they were still able to accomplish that entire goal, and the team was able to move forward and accomplish what they were setting out to do. And this individual played a key role in that. And obviously, we all know within the business world, within the tech world, within every world, right? It's all about those strong partnerships that you build, and that's ultimately how teams are able to accomplish their goals, and that interviewer is gonna know that. Okay, we're gonna pause right now. If anything that I've shared with you so far has resonated with you, been helpful, I would really just ask, put a like down on this video, add a comment, please subscribe, where I'll be putting out weekly videos very similar to this if this is something that you found helpful along the way. So we're gonna dive into step number 4 now, which is we're gonna reach out and we're gonna ask the recruiter specifically for interview prep material or any questions that you can kind of prep for, any experience that they think that you should be able to highlight, everything like that whenever you're in the interview itself. Oftentimes it sounds crazy, but recruiters will just hand over, this is exactly kind of the questions you can expect, and some of those are verbatim what will be asked in the interview. Oftentimes they're gonna kind of give you a general direction of, okay, I think you should kind of prep around this area, be prepared to be able to highlight this, speak to this experience and strength that you have whenever you get into the interview. Once we've gathered all of this information, again, we're gonna put it into that step number 3, the STAR method, to where we can really be able to paint out an exact picture of an experience that we've had so far and how this directly ties and correlates over into this role right now. This takes me into step number 5. Call me old school, but I'm somebody who I really like to write things down. I'm not very good at just kind of typing it, everything like that. My brain just needs for me to be able to write it down and then to be able to read it off. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some flashcards, and I want you to take those main kind of examples that you've now compiled, you've put together, because what these are they're going to be whenever you get to a point where you're a little bit uncomfortable, or maybe there's a question that comes your way and everything like that. These are going to be your go-to backup pocket examples for you to be able to then take, use, and then kind of be able to mesh into whatever question has been asked for you. And so we're really going to sit down and we're going to memorize this out. So on the front side, we're going to put down, okay, this is specifically for this topic. Flip side, I want for you to then put bullet points of, again, using the STAR method, what's the situation, what's the task, action I took, and the results. And you're just gonna sit there and you're gonna flip through those over and over again until you get relatively comfortable, so that by the time you look at that first kind of question that pops up, that first theme that pops up, you already know, okay, boom, my brain's clicking, it's going through the STAR method, and I'm able to share a visual example and be able to walk through specifically how I'm going to be able to answer this question whenever I'm sitting there in the interview. This now takes me to step number 6. Again, call me old school, call me a little quirky, call me weird, whatever. It's worked for me so far, but I want for you to get in front of the mirror, and we're going to go through those flashcards, right? Except at this point, I want for you to just look down, again, look at what is kind of the theme, what is the highlight that's on the front of that flashcard, and you're gonna look up at the mirror, and I want for you to be able to give back your answer. I promise at the very beginning, this is gonna feel weird, it's gonna feel uncomfortable, but what you're really doing is, again, you're training yourself and you're teaching yourself, you're becoming very comfortable, confident, familiar with the answers that you're providing to questions. Because what we're really doing is we're trying to replicate as much as possible and get you as many reps as possible, so that whenever you are actually in that situation, it's very natural to you. It comes across very naturally, again, to the interviewer, to the person that you're sitting in front of, and it makes it just very easy for them to be able to provide feedback for you. Okay, step number 7, which is if you are in the middle of a virtual interview, if not, you can totally toss this out. But oftentimes what I do, and it's pretty acceptable, but as you're sitting down to be able to prep for that interview, right? Let's say fast forward, it's day of, you can put up some of those flashcards kind of with those key points, so that whenever you are in the middle of your interview, you're able just to kind of briefly glance up, you see that, boom, it kind of sparks something in your mind, and you're able just to kind of continue moving on, and you feel like you don't get stuck. And then honestly, my step number 8, which is trust yourself. You have gone through all of this preparation. You have put in an immense amount of time, energy, attention into this. Know you have made it to this point for a reason. You are qualified to be able to get the role. All it is up to you is just to be able to lay out and show all of the amazing experiences, all of the journey that you've taken that has gotten you to this point right now. And so have confidence in that, smile, take a deep breath. Whenever those questions are asked to you, know it's totally okay to be able to field those. Take a deep breath, have a pen and paper, and write it out, the question that's being asked for you. That is totally normal. As an interviewer, I'm speaking from a personal experience. It is not my expectation that I am going to ask you a question and right off the bat, you are going to fire an answer back to me. So don't feel like that is something that is expected of you as a candidate whenever you are in the middle of that interview. Again, we have time. Do not stress. The interviewer is going to lead the interview. They are going to guide you. They're going to propose those questions. Oftentimes they're going to wait. They're going to let you to be able to kind of share that. They're going to be sitting there. Oftentimes they're going to be writing their direct feedback. So again, don't take any offense if they're not looking directly at you. They're going to try their best to do that. And every company kind of does it a little bit differently, but ultimately that interviewer is going to be able to have to write down some kind of documented feedback that is then shared with the hiring manager. And so from your end, just kind of the more that you know, okay, we're going to keep this just very lighthearted. It's a conversation. The interviewer, oftentimes, maybe they're going to be somebody that's going to work directly with you on the team. Maybe there's somebody that just kind of works cross-functionally, everything like that, right? But one of the other key points that I do want to highlight is, and I guess we can make this step number 9, but have some questions in mind. Again, using that job description to be able to identify, okay, what are some questions that I can ask about this specific role, right? And so we'll go back again to we're talking about, building cross-functional relationships. That's a bullet point that we've talked about all throughout, right? And so a question that you could ask is, can you give me an example of cross-functional partners that I will be interacting with on a daily? What does that relationship look like? What are some expectations that I will have stepping into this role with building those relationships? I just want to be able to get a better understanding and a better picture of who it is that I'll be working with on a daily. Again, this shows that you're prepared. You know exactly what this job entails. You've done your homework, you've done your research, and you're genuinely interested in the role specifically, right? And so again, this is just really good brownie points to be able to build with the interviewer. Again, you have no idea. This could be somebody that you could be interacting with on a daily. And so they're already right off the bat, they're able to see, wow, this person's prepared, and I'm really excited to be able to provide feedback for this person. Okay, so this concludes this week's episode of Mindset, Motivation, and Guidance. Again, I'm your host, Brett Parker. If this content is something that you found valuable, helpful, again, I just ask, click that like button, add a comment down below, and subscribe, where I'll be putting out weekly videos very similar to this. I was super excited to be able to sit down and put together this week's episode. Came from a question from some friends based off of the previous episode that I put out. And I've been fortunate enough to have years of being able to compile this together through great mentors, great friends, great family members. And ultimately, I've been able to get to this point where I feel like this has really been able to help me not only prep for interviews, but then ultimately kind of be able to see the benefits of that. And so, firm believer that you can too be able to apply and be able to go through the interview process, be able to crush it, and be able to get that dream job that you're looking for. And so, can't wait to hear all about it. And we'll see you in next week's episode.